The courtyard buzzed with excitement. Students gathered beneath the crystal dome of Velun Academy, standing in neat rows as sunlight filtered through the barrier glass ceiling. Today was the awakening ceremony, the moment every 16-year-old discovered their unique skill. For most, it was the beginning of their journey to power, fame, or purpose. For me, it felt more like a verdict. I stood near the back, quiet, watching names get called one by one. The orb at the center of the ritual circle shimmered with every awakening. Fire. Earth-shaping. Wind blades. The courtyard was alive with light and envy. Lina Marveil, the professor called. A girl with silver hair stepped forward confidently. I knew her from herbology class. Friendly, popular, always smiled at everyone, even me. She touched the orb. Light burst upward. Skill registered, holy thread. Tier B. Category, support. Cheers followed. Tier B skills were rare, especially in healing. Lina returned to her place calmly, though a few classmates clapped louder than they needed to. And then, Kale Duran. The name hit harder than I expected. My legs moved before I could decide whether I wanted them to. I stepped into the circle, swallowed dry air, and placed my palm on the orb. It was cold, then warm. Faint green light flickered, then swirled into dark purple. The system's voice rang out from the crystal pillars. Skill registered, 1% poison per second. Effect: inflicts 1% poison damage per second on target. Duration extends with continued focus. Poison effect stacks infinitely. Lingers for 5 seconds after contact ends. Tier F. A beat of silence. Then it started. Wait, did it say 1% per second? Is that even real? F tier, ouch. I guess someone has to hold the bottom spot. I stepped away from the orb, pretending I didn't hear them. I'd expected something weak, but not this weak. The professor gave me a brief, awkward nod. Thank you, Kale. Next student, Zara Ren. I returned to the back of the crowd. Lina glanced over at me with a soft look, like she wanted to say something. But she didn't. Nobody did. The rest of the day felt like I was walking underwater. By afternoon, I had drifted to the Academy's greenhouse. No one ever came here during ceremony days. The plants didn't care what kind of skill you had. I sat down behind the vines and pulled my knees up. 1% per second. Sounded like a joke. In a real fight, how long would I last? 10 seconds? Maybe 15? A monster would crush me long before I could stack enough poison to matter. It wasn't a flashy skill. It wasn't fast or powerful or clever. Just slow. I looked down at my hands. Nothing had changed. No special markings. No sign of strength. Maybe that was the point. I clenched my fist. It stacks infinitely. Yeah, great. Infinite poison, if I could live that long. Found you. I jumped. Lina stood a few steps away holding something wrapped in cloth. A sandwich. I figured you hadn't eaten. Why do you care? She sat beside me and shrugged. Because I know what it feels like. I didn't answer. She unwrapped the sandwich and handed it to me anyway. My brother awakened a useless skill last year. Everyone laughed. Now he's ranked top 5 in his district. I glanced at her. What was his skill? Doesn't matter, she said with a grin. He made it work. I stared at the sandwich. I wasn't hungry, but I ate it anyway. She leaned back on her hands and looked up at the dome's sky. I think your skill's better than it sounds. That's a kind lie. No, I mean it. It's not about what a skill does in 5 seconds. It's about what it does in 50. I paused. My fingers were tingling. I hadn't noticed it earlier, but since awakening, there was a faint pulse in my skin, like something alive moving under the surface. Lina smiled again and stood. Training dungeon starts tomorrow, right? Yeah. I'll be watching. Next morning the team assignments came out. I was placed with Ray Thorne, top swordsman in our year, and Mira Velun, an explosive fire mage with 0 patience. Neither of them looked happy. Ray crossed his arms. Let me be clear. I'm not here to carry anyone. If you can't keep up, stay out of the way. Mira scowled. They really gave us the poison kid? Great. I'll try not to sneeze and burn him. I said nothing. Just nodded. They turned and walked off to prepare. That night I couldn't sleep. The training dungeon tomorrow wasn't just a test. It was my first real chance to see if this skill could do anything. If I failed, I wouldn't just fall behind. I'd be left behind. As I lay there, I kept feeling that strange rhythm in my chest. A slow pulse. A warmth that hadn't been there before. I sat up and looked at my hand again. It didn't look like poison. It looked normal. But deep inside, something told me it wasn't. Something was building. Something slow. Something that didn't stop. We stood at the edge of the dungeon gate. A tall archway of smooth black stone pulsed with blue light. The entrance shimmered like water in midair. It hummed quietly, almost like it was breathing. Cold mist drifted out of the opening, curling around our feet. The sign beside the gate read, Fog Hollow, F-rank training dungeon. Monsters, mistwalkers, slimes, bone sprites. Difficulty, controlled. Objective, reach the inner core and return. Ray checked his blade with practiced movements. Mira stretched, fire crackling around her fingers. I stood still, heart thudding in my chest. Stay behind us, Ray muttered. Don't touch anything unless I say so. Or melt anything by accident, Mira added with a sideways glance. Assuming your poison actually does something. I didn't respond. There was no point arguing. Not yet. Professor Alden stood nearby, clipboard in hand. Team 3, you're cleared. Timer starts on entry. Go in. Come back in one piece. Ray nodded. Understood. He stepped through the gate first. Mira followed without a word. I took a breath, then stepped forward. The world folded around me. The air inside was cold and wet. Thick gray mist coated everything. Trees with pale bark loomed out of the fog. The ground squished under our boots with each step. Sounds were muffled, distant drips, faint rustles, but no clear direction. Like the dungeon didn't want us to know where we were. Stay in formation, Ray ordered. Fog affects perception. Kel back right. Mira left. I obeyed. We moved slowly through the undergrowth, watching the shapes that shifted inside the mist. A faint sound, like bubbles, echoed from ahead. Ray raised his sword. Slimes, he said. A group of pale blue creatures oozed from the brush. 5 of them. They gurgled as they moved, soft and slow, but the ground hissed where their bodies touched it. Acid slimes. Perfect, Mira grinned. She raised her hand and flicked her wrist. A flash of flame surged out, crashing into the nearest slime. It sizzled, popping loudly. Ray dashed forward, blade cutting clean through 2 more. They worked like a machine, clean, fast, effective. I stood still. There wasn't room to help. The last slime hissed toward me, but Ray spun and cut it down without pause. Mira blew smoke from her fingertips. So, poison boy. Gonna help or just watch? I looked down at the fading slime puddles. They died before I could reach them. Exactly, she said, walking ahead. I followed in silence. We moved deeper into the fog. It got colder. The path narrowed. Strange shapes moved at the edges of my vision, always gone when I turned. Then from behind a tree something struck. A blur of bone and claws leapt at Ray from the side. He parried, but another one followed. Bone sprites. Fast. Too fast. Mira backed up, firing firebolts into the mist. They're coming from both sides. I moved without thinking. A bone sprite leapt at me. I dodged left, barely. It grazed my shoulder. Pain bloomed sharp and fast, but I reached out and touched its arm. Poison, I whispered. Green light shimmered briefly at my fingers. The monster didn't stop. It hissed and swung again. Ray slammed it from behind with a clean slice. You all right? Yeah. More were coming. 4 more. Then 6. We backed into a tighter formation. Kale, Ray barked. You're up. Just touch them if that's all you can do. Right. I breathed in, focused on the closest one, and reached forward. My poison activated. 1%. 2%. It kept going as I pressed my hand against the monster's chest. I could feel it working. The glow deepened with every second. The creature flailed, but I didn't let go. 3%. 4%. Mira knocked it away with a fire shot. It stumbled, then twitched, and collapsed. I blinked. It died? That fast? Another one charged. I touched it, held my focus. 5 seconds, maybe 6. Mira scorched it before it reached Ray. It crumpled. My pulse was wild. My shoulder still stung, but... Wait, the pain was fading? I looked down. The slash from earlier, the one that hit me, it was smaller. The blood had stopped. The skin had begun to knit itself back together. What? I blinked, then remembered. Inflicts 1% poison damage per second. Stacks infinitely. And yet, you feel a little stronger. I hadn't heard that line before. I touched my side again. No doubt. I was healing. Not fast. Not all at once. But with every tick of poison, a thread of warmth returned to my body. Every bit of damage I dealt came back to me. Ray slashed down the last bone sprite. Mira sighed and dropped to a knee, catching her breath. That's the last of them, Ray muttered. You good, Kale? I nodded, still staring at my arm. I think my poison does more than damage, I whispered. Mira raised a brow. You suddenly sound less useless. I'm serious. Ray looked at me, really looked for the first time all day. You didn't take a potion, did you? No. Then how are you standing? That thing cut you. I looked up at him slowly. I think, every time I deal poison damage, I heal by the same amount. Silence. Even Mira didn't speak right away. Well, she said at last, brushing ash from her coat, that's annoying. Ray crossed his arms. That's not listed in your skill registration. I didn't know. He glanced at the fog behind us. Let's keep moving. Carefully. If you're right, then you're not just stacking poison. He looked back at me. You're leeching strength. As we moved deeper into the dungeon, something changed inside me. My hands still trembled. My steps were still careful. I wasn't fearless. But I wasn't just the weakest anymore. I was something else. Something slower. Quieter. But constant. And slowly, I was beginning to realize that might be even more dangerous. By the time we reached the inner section of the dungeon, the mist was thinner, but the pressure was worse. Every step felt heavier. The air grew cold and tight, like something was watching us. Ray didn't say much. Mira cracked her knuckles and walked ahead without hesitation, but I could tell she was tense. We stopped at a circular stone platform, half sunken in the ground. It pulsed with faint blue light. Ray raised a hand. Wait. Something was off. I could feel it too, like the dungeon itself was holding its breath. Then the light turned red. A low growl echoed through the trees, and something stepped out of the fog. It looked like a giant bear at first, except its fur was black stone, and mist poured from its eyes and mouth. The ground hissed beneath its feet. Cracks spread where its claws touched the earth. Mistborn Gloomfang, F-rank mini-boss. Weakness, fire. Resistance, poison, ice, dark. Great, Mira muttered. Poison resistant. I froze. Poison resistant? I wasn't ready for that. My skill couldn't break through resistance fast enough. Not yet. Ray drew his blade. We finish it fast. Mira, burn it down. Kale, keep away from the front. No argument here, I said quickly, backing up. Mira launched the first strike. A surge of flames slammed into the beast's chest. It roared, staggered back, then charged forward like nothing happened. Ray met it with steel. Sparks flew as his sword met claw. I watched from the edge, trying to think. My poison wouldn't work fast enough against something like that. Not unless I found a way to make it stay in contact for a long time. But it was fast, strong, and it didn't stop moving. Even so, poison resistant didn't mean immune. It just meant slower. And slower was still something. Ray got knocked aside. He hit a tree and rolled. Mira shouted something, but the beast was already turning toward her. She fired off a blast. It missed. Then it lunged. I didn't think. I moved. I slid between her and the monster, pressing both palms to its front leg. Poison, I whispered. The light flickered, weakly. Sluggish. Like trying to burn through a wet rag. Still I held on. 1%. 2%. The monster snarled and kicked, flinging me backward into the dirt. I skidded, coughing. But I could already feel the pulse. The warmth. The drip of healing in my chest. I gritted my teeth and stood up. Mira helped Ray to his feet. That thing's not going down fast, she muttered. No, he said. Kale. I looked up. Can your poison hold if we trap it? He asked. I blinked. Maybe. We slow it. You stack it. Then we finish it. A plan. A real one. Let's try, I said. Ray moved first. He circled the monster, striking from the sides, drawing its attention. Mira raised her hands. I can try to melt its legs. Give you a window. Go, I said. She fired a burst of flame. It hit the ground near its feet, turning stone to mud. The beast stumbled only slightly. But enough. I ran forward. Slid low. Pressed my hand to its side. And focused. The world narrowed. I could feel the poison ticking. 1%. 2%. 3%. It resisted, but the stack kept building just slower. I gritted my teeth and held on. The healing ticked with it. My scraped arms started mending. My lungs felt stronger. 5%. 6%. 7%. It started roaring, thrashing, realizing something was wrong. 8%. 9%. Then Mira screamed. I turned. A claw came down on her shoulder. Blood sprayed. No. I let go. Rushed toward her. She was on the ground, coughing. Pell. I dropped beside her. Stay with me. Ray was shouting. The monster turned again. No time. I pressed my hand to the monster's leg again, and then shoved my other hand onto Myra's arm. Come on. The poison ticked. I focused harder than I ever had. And something new happened. The healing spread. A green glow passed through my fingers from me to her. Her wound pulsed once, then began to close, thread by thread. Her eyes fluttered open. You're healing me? She whispered. I didn't know I could. She blinked. That's actually pretty cool. Ray screamed from the other side of the clearing. The monster was collapsing. The poison had stacked past 20%. Even with resistance, it couldn't keep fighting. It staggered, legs shaking. Then dropped. Dead. We stood in silence for a long second. Then Professor Alden's voice came through the crystal link. Training complete. Well done, Team 3. Extraction portal opening. Later, back in the academy field, Professor Alden pulled me aside. You're not listed as a dual effect skill, he said calmly. I didn't know I was, I replied. He looked me over, thoughtful. Poison damage that heals the user. And it seems others too, through shared contact. I nodded slowly. Keep that quiet for now, he said. Some abilities don't show their full form until stress unlocks them. Yours may still be changing. He patted my shoulder once, gently. Learn it. Train it. Don't rush. It's not the fast skills that survive. It's the ones that adapt. That night I sat in my room looking at my hands. They still looked ordinary. But I knew better now. 1% per second. Slow. Quiet. Weak at first. But the longer it stayed, the more it gave. And now it heals. I wasn't a damage dealer. Not really. I was something in between. Something harder to kill. Something harder to stop. And that might be the key to everything. 2 days later, I was back in the field training arena. My shoulder still ached faintly, not from the wound but from the memory of it. Again, Professor Alden said, arms crossed. But this time, hold the effect for 10 full seconds. I nodded. In front of me stood a wooden dummy infused with a weak enchantment, just strong enough to register poison. I stepped forward, focused, and pressed my hand to the target. Green light flickered faintly. 1%, 2%. The air felt heavier as I forced the effect to linger. 3%, 4%. My skin itched. My head throbbed. Holding the connection for too long was tiring. By 9%, my breath was shallow. At 10%, I pulled away. The dummy smoked slightly. Professor Alden marked something down on his board. You're getting better. But your concentration needs time to grow. I nodded, wiping sweat from my brow. He looked at me with that same quiet intensity he always had. This skill of yours isn't just about damage. It's about timing, control, judging when to press and when to pull back. I nodded again, slower this time. I was starting to understand that. Later that afternoon, I was reassigned. Team reshuffle. Dungeon simulation level 2. New team, me, Mira again, and Zane Rith, of all people. He stood across from us near the gate, arms crossed, lightning flickering faintly across his shoulders. Zane was ranked top 5 in our year. He'd been training off campus with private tutors for months. His awakening? A tier B lightning arc skill. Fast, lethal, flashy. Great, he said when he saw me. They paired me with Mist Boy. Mira rolled her eyes. Just don't electrocute us. Zane scoffed. Try to keep up. The dungeon this time was different. No mist, just stone. A rocky canyon filled with narrow paths, creaking bridges, and crumbling platforms. Wind howled between the cliffs. Crags of the Silent Maw simulation. Objective: secure the lost relic at the center. Retrieve or defend for 3 minutes. Let's move, Zane said. I'll scout. You two stay close. We followed. He was fast, too fast. He moved from ledge to ledge with crackling steps, barely waiting. Mira grumbled. He's gonna get himself killed showing off. I didn't answer. Something about this place felt wrong. We reached the central chamber. A raised platform stood at the center of a large, broken arena. On it, a silver orb floated gently. Relic secured, Zane said, grabbing it. Timer starts now. That's when the rocks around us moved. 6 of them. Golems. Stone and metal with glowing red cores. Stone sentinels, F rank. Weakness, poison, water. Immune, lightning, fire. Of course, Mira whispered. They're immune to us. Zane cursed. You've got to be kidding me. I stepped forward. I'm not fire. Or lightning. They looked at me. Then go. Zane shouted. You're the only one who can hurt them. The golems moved slowly but with crushing weight. I dashed forward, pressing my hand to the first one's core. Poison shimmered. 1%. 2%. It resisted but not fully. It stacked. I moved to the next, then the next, rotating between them, spreading the stacks thin. But that was the problem. I couldn't stay long on any single one. Not if I wanted to spread the poison. Not if I wanted to heal. The golems began pressing in. Zane and Mira shouted, pulling them back, stalling, but then the platform cracked. A deep rumble shook the arena. And suddenly, Mira slipped. The ground beneath her gave way. She caught the edge of the platform with one hand, legs dangling. Zane was across the field, pinned behind two golems. I was the only one close. And just like that, I had to choose. Save Mira. She was about to fall. If she let go, she'd drop into the dark below. Probably just a simulation floor, but no one knew how far it went. Or help Zane. His barrier was failing. One golem raised its arm to strike. A solid blow would knock him out, or worse. I hesitated. 1 second. 2. I looked at Mira. It's Zane. My poison couldn't be in two places at once. And my healing? It required contact. Who did I save? I ran. Straight to Mira. I grabbed her hand, pulled hard. Don't let go. Wasn't planning on it. I channeled poison into the stone beside us. The ledge crumbled slower. She climbed up. Breathless. Alive. Zane? He shouted, and blasted both golems with a full arc of lightning. It stunned them just enough. He broke through, panting. He wasn't happy. Figures, he spat. You save her. I said nothing. He stormed off toward the exit portal. Mira watched him go, then turned to me. You picked me. I nodded. I had to. Thank you. She punched my shoulder lightly. I would have picked you too. After the simulation, Professor Alden said nothing. Just nodded once when he saw me. Like he knew what happened. Like he approved. But Zane? He didn't speak to me again that day. Didn't need to. The look on his face said everything. To him, I was still a weakling. But to someone else, I had become a teammate worth trusting. And that meant more than a ranking ever could. The training yard was quiet at dawn. Frost clung to the wooden dummies, and the grass crunched underfoot. Most students were still asleep. Not me. I stood alone, hands out, breathing slow. Again, I whispered to myself. I reached forward and pressed my palm to the wood. 1%, 2%, 3%. The glow spread faintly over the surface. It was steady. Controlled. I counted the seconds silently. At 10%, I pulled away. I hadn't even broken a sweat. It was getting easier. Faster too, not the damage itself but the act of holding on. The mental pressure, the focus drain. It no longer felt like I was forcing it. It was just there. Like a thought that never stopped growing. Like a presence. Professor Alden had told me something the day before. Your poison isn't just an attack. It's a reflection. If you learn to shape your thoughts, you'll shape the skill. I hadn't fully understood what he meant. But this morning I was beginning to. The poison wasn't wild. It responded to my mood. When I focused gently, it lingered softly. When I forced it, it lashed out harder, then vanished faster. It listened. Almost like it was thinking. Later that morning, I met with Mira by the field benches. She had a small flame hovering over her hand like a candle. You're getting stronger, she said without looking at me. Barely. I saw how long you held on yesterday. That golem would have gone down if you had 5 more seconds. I didn't respond. She was right. You made the right call, by the way, she added. In the canyon. Zane's a jerk. He would have let you fall without blinking. Still, I said, he was on our team. I should have. No, she said, cutting me off. You made a choice. That's better than hesitating. I looked at her. She looked back. You're allowed to value people, Kale. Not everything is about logic. That stuck with me more than I expected. That afternoon, we were excused from classes for independent training. I returned to the back courtyard, where the plants grew taller and the academy walls were wrapped in ivy. It was quiet here. Peaceful. I practiced again, this time without touching a target. Just holding the idea of poison in my hands. I imagined it curling, folding inward. Soft green lines shimmered at my fingertips. I didn't say anything. Just watched them. Then a voice broke the silence. You're the poison kid, aren't you? I turned. A tall boy in a dark uniform stood near the garden archway. Older. Maybe second year? His badge glinted silver, guild prep track. I'm Rin Velhart, he said. I saw your last simulation. I nodded slowly. You're From class black? Top 10, he said casually. But I'm not here to brag. He stepped closer, studying my hand. You're controlling it now. That's rare. Rare? Most poison abilities are either automatic or unstable. Yours seems balanced. Thinking. You're forming intent before application. What does that mean? He smiled faintly. It means your skill isn't just a tool. It's a system. It responds to you. That's the kind of ability that grows with its user. I said nothing. Ren leaned on the garden wall. I had a friend 2 years ago. She awakened something similar. A decay-based field. Everyone laughed at her too, until she cleared a solo C-rank dungeon. He tilted his head. You want to reach that level? I met his eyes. Yes. Then learn this now, he said. Your poison is only as strong as your patience. Don't waste it showing off. Let it breathe. Let it build. He turned to leave. But keep your secret healing to yourself. Someone will want it. And then he was gone. That night I wrote it all down. Every detail. Every pattern. The way the poison felt when I was angry versus calm. The healing pulse when it spread. The flicker of warmth when I truly focused. I wasn't just training anymore. I was learning a language. One made of seconds. One made of stacks. One that healed me slowly in more ways than one. 15 minutes? I blinked. Instructor Oren nodded sternly, arms crossed. That's all the time you'll get. Defeat the dungeon's core guardian and retrieve the shard. Return before the timer ends, or your score is invalid. I looked around at my temporary team. 5 of us. Not Mira. Not Ray. Instead, 3 fast-track students I didn't know well, plus Zane. Again. He smirked. Oh great. Snail Boy's here. I ignored him. Mostly. The speed trial was a new addition to the Academy's curriculum. Designed to test combat efficiency under strict time pressure, it simulated real-world dungeon rush missions, like when a portal destabilized or a village needed emergency clearing. For me, it was a nightmare. 15 minutes was barely enough time to stack my poison properly, let alone do serious damage. But if I skipped the trial, I'd be dropped from advanced training. I couldn't afford that. So I stood there in the sunlight, pretending I didn't feel like a wooden spoon thrown into a blender. Inside the gate, the dungeon opened into a bright canyon filled with shallow water and scattered ruins. The Guardian's location had already been mapped. The only question was, could we get there, kill it, and return in time? The team broke into a run. Zane surged ahead, lightning pulsing at his heels. I ran too at my own pace. Try not to fall behind, Poison Boy, someone called. I didn't answer. The Guardian appeared 6 minutes in. A serpentine creature made of glowing roots and metal coils, wrapped in a shell of bark and stone. Verdant Coil Beast, Trial Guardian. Weakness, Burn, Corrosion. Immune, Knockback Ice. Passive Regeneration, 1% per second. Zane grinned. Let's crack it open. He rushed forward, lightning arcing. Others followed. Blades slashed. Magic flared. I watched. Their attacks were fast, but the beast healed faster. 1% per second. Exactly what my poison dealt. The irony didn't escape me. Zane cursed. It's stalling. We're just wasting time. The creature swept the group back with a whip of thorny roots. One student fell hard and didn't get up. I stepped forward. Let me try. Zane glanced at me furious. What are you gonna do? Tickle it to death? I don't need to kill it, I said. I just need to make sure it stops healing. He hesitated. You've got 2 minutes. I closed in slowly. Hands glowing faintly green. I pressed both palms against the creature's root body. The poison flowed. 1%, 2%, 3%. The pulses were slower this time. The creature resisted, its natural regeneration pushing back. 4%, 5%. I clenched my jaw, focused harder. I imagined the poison threading into the gaps between bark and coil, sinking into the rhythm of its regeneration. The two effects clashed. And for the first time, I saw it happen. Its healing stopped. The number froze. 0%. And then, it started dropping. Zane saw it first. It's losing health. I didn't speak. Couldn't. I was too focused. 6%. 7%. 8%. It began thrashing. A vine whipped across my chest. Pain burst through my ribs, but the healing followed. Slow. Steady. My wounds didn't close instantly, but I stayed on my feet. Still connected. Now! Zane shouted. Hit it while it's weakened. The team surged forward. Fire spells struck the open bark. Blades found the soft root underneath. The creature screeched once, then fell still. The timer still showed 3 minutes. We'd done it? No, they had done it. But only because I made it possible. We retrieved the shard. Ran. Exited with 1 minute to spare. Back in the courtyard, the instructor marked our score on the board. Pass. The others panted in relief. Zane stepped aside, tossing a look my way. He didn't say thank you. But he also didn't say you held us back. That was new. That evening, I sat beneath the academy wall, hands open. The poison in my palm glowed brighter than usual. Controlled. Balanced. Alive. It wasn't fast. It wasn't flashy. But today it did something the others couldn't. It shut down healing. It turned the tide. And the more I understood it, the more I realized I wasn't behind. I was just walking a different path. One slow, deliberate step at a time. The letter came the next morning. A simple envelope, sealed with the black and gold mark of Class S, the elite track for students ranked in the Academy's top percentile. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. To Kale Duran. Your performance in the recent speed trial has been noted. Due to your unique ability to counter regeneration and provide adaptive field healing, you are invited to observe the elite class dungeon team for their next practical dive. If you accept, report to Hall C at 0700 hours tomorrow. This is not a test. This is an opportunity. The letter wasn't signed, but the handwriting felt familiar. Ren Velhart. He'd watched me, judged me, and now, maybe, believed in me? I wasn't sure how to feel about that. Mira leaned against my dorm wall, flipping the letter between her fingers like it was a piece of toast. Classes, huh? You planning to go? I don't know. Why not? I hesitated. Because they're stronger than me. All of them. I'm not ready for that level. She gave me a look. You weren't ready for the canyon trial either. Or the speed trial. You still went. That was different. No. It wasn't. Her voice softened. You're scared. That's okay. But don't lie to yourself about it. I didn't answer. She tossed the letter back onto my bed and stood. For what it's worth, if you go, you'll probably come back stronger. I watched her leave. Then I stared at the envelope again. I didn't sleep much that night. Next morning I stood in Hall C. 5 other students were already gathered, taller, sharper, dressed in clean combat uniforms with enchanted trims. Their expressions were calm, focused. Ren stood among them, leaning against the wall, arms folded. He looked at me. You came. Yeah. Good. He tossed me a thin armband. It shimmered slightly. Observer status. You won't be fighting, but you will be learning. That means eyes open, mouth shut. Understood. I nodded, slipping the band over my wrist. He turned to the others. This dungeon is ranked low B. Nothing chaotic, but strong enough to kill if you treat it like a game. Move with the group. Kale, stay behind Mira too, she'll run field monitoring. I blinked. Mira? 2. A tall girl with spiky orange hair raised a brow. Mira Velun's cousin, she said simply. Better fire control, worse jokes. I almost smiled. The gate shimmered open. Inside, the dungeon felt different. Alive. The walls pulsed faintly. Roots grew along the ceilings. The air smelled faintly of ash and wet stone. Ren raised a hand. We're entering a nest. Insects. Possibly corrupted. The others nodded and moved quietly. They were fast but not showy. Efficient. I followed, steps careful. This wasn't like the trial simulations. This felt real. Too real. The first monsters came 10 minutes in. Crimson scarabs. Large, armored beetles with mandibles that glowed red-hot. They clung to walls, ceilings, dropped from above. 3 of them landed at once. Ren called calmly, suppress and sweep. The team responded instantly, fire bolts, ice lances, force barriers. They didn't just fight, they moved together. I watched, wide-eyed, as the scarabs were overwhelmed. Not because of brute power, but because every move was part of a pattern. Discipline. Precision. Made me feel small. Useless. 20 minutes passed. Then something went wrong. A crack split open in the stone under Ren's feet. He leapt back just in time, but out of the gap came something far worse than a scarab. A long, centipede-like creature, black and red, with glowing fangs and twitching legs. Deep core spine crawler, Class B parasite host. Weakness, poison. Passive trait, burrow infestation. The group shifted positions instantly, but the spine crawler was fast. Faster than anything I'd seen. It lunged at the rear line, biting one of the team in the leg. They fell. Blood sprayed. The others scrambled to regroup. Ren barked, poison. Everyone looked at me. Me. I hesitated. Kale. I ran forward, ducking the monster's tail, sliding to the fallen student's side. The wound was deep, pulsing with black slime. I pressed both hands to her armor. Poison, flow, I whispered. The light flickered. It wasn't strong, but it spread. Over her blood. Into the creature's venom. And I saw something I hadn't seen before. My poison fighting their poison. Green threads coiling around black ones. Slowly, carefully, unraveling them. The girl's breathing slowed. The swelling stopped. She was stable. Then the monster turned on me. I raised my hand too late. The mandible struck. And Rin stepped in, blade flashing. He cut across the creature's head, forcing it back. Then looked at me, eyes sharp. You're not an observer anymore. We cleared the nest. Barely. The spine crawler escaped, wounded. But no one died. Back at the gate, Rin pulled me aside. You did well. I froze. You moved anyway. That's better than freezing forever. He placed a mark on my armband. Promotion. Guest support rank. You're not fast, he said. But your poison doesn't care how fast something is. It waits. That's what makes it dangerous. He started to leave. Rin, I called. He paused. Why me? Why pick me for this? He smiled faintly. Because your power scares people. He walked off. And I stood there. Realizing for the first time. That was a good thing. I didn't expect anything to change when I got back. No parade. No praise. Just a return to the usual. Morning drills, lukewarm cafeteria food, and classmates pretending I wasn't there. But that's not what happened. By second period, the whispering had started. He was on an elite team, right? Poison boy? No way. I heard he healed a support student who was dying. Someone said his poison beat a regeneration-type boss. Solo? Wait, I thought his skill was F-tier? I walked down the hallway with my head lowered, pretending I didn't hear. But I did. Every word. And every time someone turned to look. During combat theory, Professor Alden handed back our dungeon reports. As he set mine on the desk, he paused for a second. Then said quietly, "Don't let it get to your head." "I won't. You're being watched now." "By who?" He didn't answer. Just moved on. Lunchtime was worse. The moment I entered the dining hall, heads turned. Some people stared. Some whispered. Others didn't look at me at all, just moved away. I sat in the far corner with my tray of bread and soup, trying not to let it feel cold. Then Mira dropped her tray next to mine with a heavy clack. "Nice of you to remember your old friends," she muttered. I blinked. "What? You go off with the elite kids, save someone's life, and come back like nothing happened?" I didn't think it was a big deal. "Kale." Her tone was sharper than usual. "You disappeared for 2 days. Didn't answer messages. Didn't show up to group practice. We thought something happened to you." I looked down at my tray. "I didn't mean to ignore you." Her voice softened just a little. "I know. But people notice, Kale. And not just me." I looked up. That's when I saw Zane across the hall. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't smirking. He was watching. His gaze was cold. Focused. Like I was suddenly something worth measuring. After lunch, I found a note on my locker door. Folded once. No name. Just words. "We know you're hiding the second half of your skill. You're not the only one who listens." There was no signature. Just that sentence. And for the first time since my awakening, I felt something like fear. I went to Professor Alden's office after class. He listened quietly as I told him about the note. When I finished, he stood and poured tea into 2 small cups. "I told you," he said. "You're being watched now." "But why?" I asked. "I'm not even strong." "Strength isn't what scares people," he replied, handing me a cup. "Potential is." I didn't drink the tea. I just stared into the steam. I didn't ask for attention. No one does. "But people don't fear what you are," he said. "They fear what you might become. Especially if they can't control it." "So what do I do?" He sat down across from me, quiet for a moment. Then said simply, "Stay honest. Stay sharp. And don't try to be what they want. Just be better than what they fear." That night, I walked the academy walls alone. The stars were clear. The air was cold. I watched my hands again, how calm they looked. How ordinary. But inside, I could feel the quiet hum of poison still ticking. Still healing. Still waiting. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them fear. My skill hadn't changed. But I had. "This is just a friendly match," Instructor Oren said, pacing in front of the student teams. "Team coordination. Quick thinking. Controlled environment. No real danger. I didn't believe a word of that. Not with the way everyone kept glancing at me. The courtyard was transformed into a closed field training zone. Natural obstacles, runic barriers, simulated hazards. The kind of place where friendly accidents happened all the time. 3 teams. 1 goal. Capture the flag at the center zone and hold it for 2 minutes. I stood with my temporary team waiting for the signal. Mira wasn't on this squad. Ray wasn't either. Instead I had a spear user named Denvaris, quiet, serious, top 10. A fire mage named Elira, quick hands, quicker temper. And Harlan Nesk, a boy with shifting brown eyes and a smile that never reached his face. It was him that made my neck itch. He stood a little too close, watched me a little too long. And during warm-ups he asked just loud enough for others to hear. So, Kill, how long does your poison take to actually matter? The match started. Barriers dropped. We moved fast. Den took the lead, Elira covered flanks, and I followed behind, keeping my hands ready. I didn't need to be in front, not yet. Just close enough to touch if needed. The flag zone was an open ruin, pillars scattered across a sunlit clearing. Another team was already there. A clash began, fast, loud, chaotic. We dove in. Sparks. Blades. Shields. I tagged one enemy, 1%, 2%, 3%, before they pulled back. The poison stuck. They slowed. Our team pressed forward. For a moment I felt like I belonged. But then Harlan whispered, "Behind you." I turned. Too late. A pulse of kinetic magic slammed into my chest. I flew back into a stone pillar, breath knocked out. Warning, simulated injury. Minor fracture. My head swam. The world tilted. I looked up just in time to see Harlan turning away. He hadn't warned me in time. He let it hit. What? I pushed myself up, wincing. Elira shouted, "Kale, we need you." I staggered back toward the center. Harlan was there again. Too close. "I'm just curious," he said casually. "What happens if your poison keeps building without a break?" "What? I mean, how much can you handle?" He grabbed my wrist, hard, and yanked me toward an enemy mage holding my hand against their chest. Poison flared, 5%, 6%, 7%, way faster than I'd ever stacked in open battle. The enemy screamed and dropped. I stumbled back. The healing hit me instantly. My vision sharpened. My side burned hot. But something felt off. Too much. Too fast. "Why would you?" He smiled. "Orders." Then turned away before I could ask what that meant. We won the match. Held the flag. Team A was disqualified due to injuries, caused by me. Or, by what he made me do. Afterward, I was summoned to the instructor's office. But not by Alden. This time it was Headmaster Ciro. She studied me across a wide desk of polished blackstone. "You're not in trouble," she said. "Then why am I here?" "I hear your poison is evolving." I didn't answer. "I also hear some students are curious about your limits," she added. Still I said nothing. "I won't stop that," she said. "Pressure reveals truth. If your power is dangerous, better we learn it here than in the field." She paused. "But if anyone crosses the line, I expect you to say so. Even if they're told to push me?" Her gaze didn't flinch. Especially then. She handed me a slip of parchment. It was sealed but unmarked. "A request came in," she said. "A dungeon run. Real field work. You weren't on the list. Someone added your name." "Who?" She smiled faintly. "Why don't you go and find out?" That night I stared at the paper under candlelight. Real dungeon. Real danger. Maybe real respect. Or maybe a trap. The poison in my hands felt different now. Thicker. Quieter. It didn't feel like it wanted to hurt anyone. But it was ready to. If it had to. We entered the dungeon at dawn. 5 students. 1 instructor. A beginner field mission under guild supervision. It was supposed to be safe. It wasn't. The dungeon was called Gravelmaw Depths, a twisting cavern network beneath an abandoned mine. Old rails snaked through collapsed tunnels. The air was thick with dust and silence. I wasn't the strongest in the group. But I was the one they all kept glancing at. They knew who I was now. The Poison Stacker. I hated that name. "Form tight lines," Instructor Jin ordered, lantern in hand. "Stay close. This dungeon's been cleared before, but something triggered a respawn. Mira was on this team, thank the stars. The others were unfamiliar. Quiet. Watchful. Especially Harlan. Again. Of course. We walked for nearly half an hour with no sign of danger. Just creaking wood, dripping water, and the faint whine of echoing wind. Then we reached a chamber where the walls opened wide, too wide, and the ground cracked beneath our feet. A roar exploded through the cavern. Stone shattered, and something massive rose from the pit. A hulking beast of bone and shale, its ribcage glowing from within, eyes smoldering red. Rockcore Goliath, Class B+ Dungeon Guardian. Affliction type, corruption. Weakness, none listed. Traits, devours vitality, spreads disease, regenerates. Jin's voice rang out. Back. That wasn't on the report. That's a mutation, get clear. But it was too late. The beast slammed down, cutting us off. Rock fell. The tunnel collapsed. We were trapped. No gate. No retreat. Just us, and it. We struck first. Mira launched twin bursts of flame. Others followed with spells, arrows, light shots. It tanked everything. Then it struck. Jin deflected the first blow, but the second ripped through his side. He hit the wall with a sickening crack and didn't get up. My mind screamed. We were unsupervised now. This wasn't a test. This was real. I didn't wait. I ran forward, weaving between the others, ducking under the creature's claws, and touched it. My poison flowed. 1%. 2%. It resisted. But I held on. 3%. 4%. The glow in its ribs flickered, but its regeneration fought back. It was healing as fast as I could poison. Mira shouted something behind me. Then, Harlan shoved past me. What are you doing? He grabbed my shoulder and, for the second time, forced my hand deeper into the monster's chest plate. Stack it faster, Kale. This is your chance. My vision blurred. 7%. 8%. My body trembled. The healing hit me in return, hard, but it wasn't just health. It was energy. Power. I could feel something unraveling inside me, like my skill wasn't just stacking poison, but waking up a deeper thread. A second rhythm. One that hummed with knowledge and danger. The longer I stayed connected, the more I understood the thing I was fighting. And then, I heard it. A voice. No one else reacted, but it echoed in my skull like a drumbeat. You stack because you refuse to be seen, but in the end, even rot must bloom. My eyes widened. The monster wasn't just healing. It was adapting. I pulled my hand away. Everyone stopped. It's mimicking my poison. They hesitated. Then the rock-core Goliath roared. A wave of green energy pulsed outward, infecting the floor, the ceiling, the air. Poison, my poison, spread across the chamber like a mist. Mira fell to one knee. The others began choking. I was the only one still standing, because the poison wasn't hurting me. It was mine, and it had been copied. I had a choice. Stay back. Hide. Let someone stronger come later. I stepped forward. I touched it again. And this time I didn't hold back. 10%, 20%, 30%. Faster now. The stacks weren't just building, they were collapsing the thing from the inside out. I focused everything. Not on pain, not on anger, just control. My poison flooded its core, fighting the corrupted mimicry. And in the final second, I saw something flicker behind its eyes. Fear. Then silence. The creature collapsed. Its body disintegrated into ash and green vapor. We didn't speak for a long time. Everyone was alive. Jin stirred. Broken ribs but breathing. Mira looked at me like I was someone else. Harlan just smiled, and for once it wasn't mocking. We returned hours later through the backup gate. The guild rep stared at the creature log. This thing copied your skill? He asked. Yes. He nodded, unsettled. That's not in the system records. That shouldn't even be possible. I didn't respond. Not out loud. But inside I was already wondering, if my poison could be copied, what else could it become? Back in my room that night, I wrote it down. The poison doesn't just stack. It learns. It reflects. It grows. And maybe, so do I. The academy changed after Gravelmaw. Not in obvious ways. No celebration, no special announcement. Just a feeling. A weight in the air. People spoke quieter when I passed. Some stopped whispering and simply watched. And others started keeping their distance entirely. Even Mira noticed. You're officially scary now, she said, stabbing her fork into a bowl of rice at lunch. I didn't do anything different, I muttered. You stacked poison on a dungeon-class monster until it collapsed from the inside out. I didn't reply. Mostly because she wasn't wrong. After the mission, the guild flagged my file. Not as a threat, but as a developing anomaly. Whatever that meant. Professor Alden called it a compliment. You're evolving faster than the system can categorize, he said during a walk near the greenhouse. That's rare. And dangerous. Why dangerous? Because the guild doesn't like things it can't classify. He handed me a small notebook. Start tracking everything. Stacks, healing rates, changes in behavior. If your poison really is adapting, the more you understand, the less they'll control it for you. I opened the first page that night and titled it, The Poison Journal, Entry 1. The way it waits. Classes moved forward. But training didn't feel the same. I was too strong for beginner drills, but not experienced enough to rank up officially. So they placed me in rotating combat labs, smaller groups that tested ability synergy under pressure. That's where I met Tessa Bryn. Tall, quiet, thin gloves over her hands. Everyone said her skill was something to do with memory threads, but no one really understood how it worked. She didn't talk much, but when we sparred for the first time she surprised me. Not with power, but with how she moved. Calm, measured, like she was listening to every step I made. Halfway through the match she stepped out of reach and said, "You don't trust your skill." I froze. What? You limit it. You stop at 30%. 40. Why not go to 100? I'd collapse before that. Or evolve again. She walked off before I could respond. Later that week, I was sent to a restricted section of the academy grounds. The Poison Garden. It wasn't open to most students. Rumor said it had been sealed decades ago after a toxic experiment failed. But Ren Velhart was waiting for me at the gate. "I recommended you," he said without turning around. "For what?" "Specialized affinity testing. You've outgrown general classes." He opened the rusted gate. I stepped through. The garden was a tangle of sickly green vines, purple thorns, and glowing spore caps. The air shimmered with haze. It didn't smell like death, but it didn't smell like life either. Ren led me to a circle of stones surrounded by thorn roots. "In the center is a toxin crystal," he said. "It responds to living magic. You're going to touch it." I stared at him. "What does it do?" "It reacts." "Nothing more. But how it reacts tells us everything." I stepped forward, reached out, touched it. Nothing happened. Then, the crystal cracked. Light bled from the break, green, gold, and black. It pulsed once, twice, and then disintegrated into mist. Ren stared, unreadable. "That's not supposed to happen, is it?" "No," he said quietly. "That's only happened once before." "Who?" He didn't answer. Later, he pulled me aside beneath a weeping vine arch. "Listen carefully. There's a difference between being strong and being noticed." I nodded slowly. "You've crossed that line now. You don't get to go back." He placed something in my hand. A small charm carved from obsidian. "Keep it close," he said. "If your poison ever starts to talk again, this might be what lets you stay yourself." "You think it'll talk again?" "I think it never stopped." That night I opened my journal and wrote, Entry 2, the poison learns. But now I wonder, is it also remembering? Something inside me is waking. And this time it's not just about stacking damage. It's about what the poison wants. The dungeon was supposed to be a simple test. Low stakes. Monitored. A solo pair assignment from the guild-sponsored practical class. Team Kale and Tessa, Cave of Echoes. Objective, reach the heart and trigger the memory crystal. Estimated duration, 40 minutes. That was it. No monsters listed. No traps. No expected danger. Just a cave filled with old resonance magic and forgotten thoughts. I should have known better. Tessa didn't speak much on the way in. She walked a few paces ahead, her pale coat fluttering behind her, gloves still covering her fingers. Her eyes stayed focused, sharp and still. The cave walls shimmered faintly with silver moss and dull crystal veins. It was quiet. Not a peaceful quiet. A listening quiet. "So," I said eventually, "your memory type, right?" Tessa didn't look at me. "That's what they call it. But what does it really do?" She stopped, turned. Her voice was calm. "I connect with echoes. Places, people, objects. If they felt something strong, pain, fear, joy, I can follow the thread." I blinked. "That's incredible." "It's not," she said. "It's intrusive." Then she turned again. "Let's keep moving." We reached the heart of the cave 20 minutes in. The crystal was waiting, an upright shard the size of a person, humming with gentle, pulsing light. Like a heartbeat slowed. Tessa stepped toward it. "I'll trigger the resonance. You stay close. If anything reacts, defend the perimeter." "Got it?" She pulled off her gloves, placed her hand on the stone. The moment she did, The air shuddered. The cave lit with violet light. The walls rippled. And the resonance began. Not a sound. A feeling. Fear. Heavy. Chained to the walls. I felt my knees buckle for a second. Tessa gasped. Then her voice broke, shaken, distant. This place, it remembers something alive. A pulse from the crystal slammed outward. The moss peeled back from the stone. And shadows poured in. They weren't monsters. Not exactly. Memories. Shapes of people long gone. Echoes of students and explorers. Fractured images frozen in terror. Silent screams stuck mid-breath. They filled the cave, clawing at the air like they were drowning. Tessa reeled back. I can't filter it, she said. Too many threads. Then the poison in my blood surged. My hand began to glow, unbidden. Green. Familiar. Alive. Tessa touched my hand. She didn't question it. She grabbed it. And the moment she did, everything changed. The memories froze. The cave went still. Then one by one, the echoes began to shrink. Collapse inward. Not from fear. Not from power. But from something I didn't understand. Tessa's breath hitched. She wasn't looking at the echoes anymore. She was looking at me. It's inside your poison. What is? Memories. She looked stunned. They're buried in the stacks. Every second, it's remembering. Storing pieces of what you touch. I didn't know that was possible. It shouldn't be. She let go. The glow faded. The echoes collapsed into dust. And the crystal dimmed to silence. But I could still feel it. In my hand. A residue. A whisper. Not in words. Just a presence. Watching. Waiting. We didn't speak much after that. On the way back to the surface, Tessa finally said, "Your skill isn't just poison." I nodded. "I think it's becoming something else." She looked at me, her eyes unreadable. "If you ever want to see what your poison remembers, I can show you." I hesitated. Maybe not yet. That night I opened my journal and wrote, Entry 3, Poison stacks damage. It heals. It adapts. But now, it remembers. What happens when memory builds like venom? And worse, what if something inside me wants to remember more? I hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time I closed my eyes it was the same dream. A green hallway, long and silent, with stone walls that pulsed softly like veins. At the end a door. Always closed. Always waiting. And just before I woke up, a voice whispered through the keyhole. "You're not the only one stacking." I never remembered what came after that. Just the cold feeling on my palms, like something had crawled across them in the night. The summons came by scroll. Formal. Stamp. To Cale Duran. From Velun Adventurer Guild Division. Subject, Ethics Review, Evolving Abilities. As part of the Academy's joint agreement with the Adventurer Guild, you are required to attend a precautionary hearing to evaluate the risks and classification of your skill. This is not a disciplinary session. But it is mandatory. Report to Guild Hall 3B at 0900 hours. I stared at the scroll for a while before folding it into my coat. The hearing room was smaller than I expected. No torches. Just white crystal light. 2 guild officials sat behind a desk. One was a recorder. The other was Captain Varn, a silver-ranked enforcer with lines under his eyes and a half-missing ear. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." I sat. "No need to be nervous," he said. "This is just standard protocol for flagged abilities." "Right." He raised a slate. "You've demonstrated poison damage over time, infinite stacking, healing feedback, and recently resonance interaction. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Are you aware your skill may now contain traces of cognitive echo absorption?" I hesitated. I wasn't. Until recently. "Are you in control of it?" The question hung in the air. What did control even mean anymore? I haven't hurt anyone unintentionally. That's not what I asked. I looked him in the eye. "It's changing. But I'm trying to stay ahead of it." He nodded slowly. "Not writing anything. Just watching me." "You're not being punished," he said at last. "But you are being watched." "I know." He leaned forward slightly. "There's a reason skills like yours don't evolve often. People fear what doesn't stop. What builds without a ceiling." "I don't want it to be feared," I said. "I just want to understand it." "That may not be up to you." The hearing ended without incident. No decisions. Just notes. On my way out, the recorder handed me a scroll. "Standard classification adjustment," she said. "Your file is now marked conditionally stable." "Meaning?" "Meaning if your ability changes again, You'll be pulled from the student roster until it's evaluated. I nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't ask what would happen after that. I think I already knew. That night I slept again. And the hallway returned. Long green. Beating softly beneath my feet. But this time, the door was open. Inside was a garden. Silent. Rotting. And at its center, a single mirror made of cracked obsidian. I stepped forward and looked into it. But I didn't see my face. I saw all the people I'd touched with my poison. Every enemy. Every monster. Every ally. All at once. And then, behind me in the reflection, a second shadow. My shape. But smiling. I woke up drenched in sweat. My hands burned faintly green. I looked down at my palms. They were still mine. Still quiet. But I knew deep in my bones. Something inside the poison had opened a door. And it wasn't closing. I wrote into my journal. Entry 4, I can feel it thinking. Not wildly. Not loudly. Just waiting. I wonder if poison ever wants more than to kill. What if it wants to remember and become? Your opponent team has been carefully selected, Instructor Oren said, folding his arms behind his back. Today's match is about limits. I already knew what that meant. They were testing me. Not my combat rank, not my team strategy, me. My skill. My restraint. I stood inside the central ring of the Academy's combat coliseum. Circular walls. Glass shields. A small crowd of students and instructors filled the surrounding seats. Just enough to feel the pressure of eyes. My opponents entered opposite me. 3 students. All handpicked. Rice Velden, a wind user with speed buffs and stagger tactics. Eula Finn, a mirror summoner who could reflect spells and redirect abilities. And Dylan Morn, a white robe purifier whose whole class was trained to neutralize lingering effects, like poison. They weren't here to win. They were here to see if I'd lose control. Professor Alden stood at the sideline. He didn't speak. He just nodded once. It was the kind of nod that meant be sharp and don't trust anyone. The match started with a burst of wind. Rice blurred toward me, blades slicing at the air. I ducked, narrowly dodged. The arena wasn't big, but it was enough for movement-based fighters to swarm. I touched his shoulder mid-strike. Poison. Active. 1%. 2%. He flickered away instantly, but not before it started ticking. Behind me, Eula raised a mirror field, thin, sharp, flickering with copied light. She didn't need to reflect attacks, just stall me. That's when Dylan advanced. Come. Pull. His hand moved in a slow circle. Cleanse. A wave of white light swept across the floor. My poison on Rice vanished. No stack. No trail. My only advantage, purged. I tried again. Waited for an opening, touched Eula's arm. Her mirror blinked red and reflected my poison back onto me. 1%. 2%. I gasped, stepping back. It ticked, slower on me but still there. I focused. Called it down. My body healed slightly, absorbing its rhythm. But I knew this wasn't going to work. Every trick I had shut down. Every strength countered. That's when it happened. Rice rushed me again. Too fast this time. His blade grazed my side. Pain flared. But something responded. Inside me. Deep in the stacks. A pull. The poison surged out of my hands, without my intent. Not a touch. Not a whisper. Just release. Green light burst outward in a circle. A low hum filled the coliseum. Rice stumbled. Eula's mirrors cracked. Dylan staggered, coughing. Their systems blinked warnings. New effect detected. Adaptive poison field, unregistered. Status, auto activation. User override not present. I backed up, breath shaking. What was that? The fight was halted. Oren raised his hand, barked. Match suspended. The arena went dim. Medical staff entered. One by one, my opponents sat or dropped to the floor, sweating, flushed, dizzy, but stable. No one was injured. But no one had expected it. I stood there, fists clenched, heart pounding. I didn't trigger the release. But the poison had moved. On its own. Later, in the instructor's chambers, Alden said nothing for a while. Just poured me water. I sat across from him, silent. Finally I spoke. It reacted without me. Yes, he said. It protected you. Is that what you call it? Kale, he said softly, your skill has evolved past command-only state. That happens with complex growth types. But I didn't give it permission. He looked at me, calm but serious. Then start learning how to negotiate with it. Negotiate. It's alive, Kale. Not a mind. But a presence. You've trained the body of it. Now you need to learn the language. That night, I didn't write in my journal. Instead, I sat with my hands open, eyes closed, felt the quiet hum in my skin, and whispered, "I'm not your enemy." Nothing replied. But I think something listened. The academy locked down before sunset. No bells. No alarm. Just quiet orders whispered through the guild channels. Evacuate wings C through E. Seal the East Bridge. Do not engage the source. Await containment. I was in the greenhouse when it happened. I felt it before I heard it. Like a thread pulled tight in my chest, trembling. The poison under my skin stirred. Mira found me minutes later. "There's a breach," she said, panting. "A student. Soul crafting. It went wrong. Soul crafting was forbidden. You couldn't just twist magic into someone's spirit, not without changing who they were, what they felt." "What kind of breach?" She hesitated. "Then, Harlan." By the time we reached the lower halls, the air was thick with mana residue, dense, jagged, raw. Walls flickered with warped symbols. The ground pulsed like it had lungs. We found him in the reflection hall. Or, what was left of him. Harlan stood in the center of the ritual circle, arms trembling, skin crawling with black thread marks. His eyes were still his, but behind them something else moved. He turned slowly when we entered. "I couldn't copy you," he said softly. "But I could trap you. Shape what you gave me." "What did you do?" I asked. "I took the poison." His voice cracked. "I grew it. I made it mine." And he had. The air reeked of it. Not my poison exactly, but a mutated copy wrapped in soulcraft and pain. He raised his hand. A spire of twisted green flame burst from the floor. Mira shouted, dodging left. I jumped forward. The poison didn't wait this time. It surged. From my arms into the floor, spreading in pulses like waves. The rogue poison shrieked as mine collided with it, rejecting it, burning it back. I understood then. My poison remembered itself. It knew what it was. And it refused to be reshaped. I reached him. Pressed a hand to his chest. Poison, active. Not to kill. To see. My vision blurred. I saw what he did. The hours of obsession. The copying. The binding. The moment it broke and whispered back to him like it had to me. But where I listened, he tried to own it. And it consumed him. Harlan dropped to his knees. His skin cracked. "Make it stop," he whispered. "Please." I could end him. 1%. 1 more second. Would be over. But instead, I pressed my other hand to his arm. Let the poison pulse evenly. Reverse. Ill. The rogue trail fought. Screamed. Tried to burn me, bite me, bury me. But I held on. Because I remembered what Alden said. You have to negotiate with it. So I did. Inside my mind I whispered, "He doesn't need to die. You don't need to end him. Let's unstack." And slowly, carefully, the poison listened. The threads faded. The ritual lines cracked and collapsed. Harlan gasped and passed out, alive. Afterward the guild took him. No trial. Just silence. No one said what would happen. But they didn't thank me either. They were afraid. Alden found me that night sitting outside by the greenhouse. "You made a choice," he said. "Was it the right one?" He looked at the stars for a long time before answering. "That depends on what your poison remembers." I opened my journal that night with trembling hands. Wrote slow. Deliberate. Entry 5, I didn't kill him. But I could have. The poison would have done it. Easily. I'm not my skill. But maybe, it's a part of me now. Not a weapon. Not a curse. A memory. And memories can learn mercy. 3 weeks passed after Harlan was taken. The academy never spoke of him again. No announcements. No investigation. Just silence. And in that silence something began to shift. Not in the poison. In the people. They called it the list. A printed scroll pinned to the guild hall's north wall, updated every quarter. It ranked the top 100 students across all classes based on dungeon performance, solo matches and instructor evaluations. The top 30 would be allowed to sit for the university entrance exam. The rest would stay behind. Until this morning, I hadn't cared much about rankings. But now, standing in the crowd with Mira at my side, I felt the pressure twisting in my gut like a vine. The students around us buzzed as the names lit up across the parchment. I scanned the scroll quickly. Rank 28, Mira Velun. She exhaled. Barely made it. Then, rank 30, Kale Duran. My heart stopped. Then started again. Barely. The whispers returned immediately. He actually made it? Poison boy's going to the exam? He's dangerous, not qualified. Didn't his skill activate on its own last time? I turned away before I could hear more. Later, Professor Alden found me outside the East Wing. He held a list of his own, scribbled notes, folded parchment, red ink. "You're in," he said. "I'm not surprised." "I am." "You shouldn't be." I looked up. "There's still one trial left. The Cave of Mirrors." "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "This time they'll design the trial to scare you, not to fail you." I frowned. "Why?" "Because people don't like what they don't control. And you? Kale, you're not in a box anymore." That afternoon I was called into the simulation wing. Inside waiting for me was Zane Rith, lightning prodigy, rank 9. He leaned on the training rail with his arms crossed. "They told me to test you," he said, "before the exam." "Test me?" "You know," he said with a slight smirk, "see if you can keep up with a real spell." I didn't rise to it. He stepped closer. "I'm not going easy, and I'm not scared of your stacks." "I don't want you to be," I said, and for once it wasn't a threat, just truth. We entered the simulator, an open plain with artificial wind and rock pillars. Time limit, 8 minutes. I didn't try to rush. Zane came in fast, bolts arcing, sword glowing, pressure high. He slashed close. I dodged, barely, tapped his shoulder. "Poison, 1%. He flinched. Not from pain, from memory. He knew what that 1% could become. But instead of retreating, he laughed. "You think that scares me now? You're just slow death." And he hit me with a lightning arc, full body. My vision flared white. Warning, burn, minor. Internal conduction, active. I dropped to one knee. But my poison healed 1%, then 2%, then 3%. My skin began to cool. The pain faded. Zane froze. "You're healing faster now." I stood up. "No, I'm healing steadier." I didn't press him. I just waited. He came at me again, and again I touched him. 5%, 8%. He backed off. Suddenly, the simulator pinged. Target saturation reached 10%. Condition deteriorating. Zane's breathing slowed. He raised a hand. "End match." The light faded. He sat on the floor and stared at me. For a long time. Finally he said, "You're not slow anymore." I walked out without responding. But in my chest, the poison thrummed like a heartbeat. Not louder, just clearer. Like it had heard him too, and was satisfied. That night I opened my journal. Entry 6, I made it onto the list. But that's not the victory. The victory is this: I no longer fear the poison. I listened to it, and for the first time, it listens back. The Cave of Mirrors wasn't made of glass. It was stone, black, curved, smooth as water. It didn't show reflections on the surface. It showed them in your mind. Every student feared it. Not because it was dangerous, but because it knew. "Final placement trial," Guild Examiner Sarah said as I stepped through the rune gate. "No time limit. You pass if you exit on your own. And if I don't? You won't be disqualified," she said calmly. "Just reassigned." The unspoken words hung in the air. Back to the lower track. No university. No future. I nodded once, then entered the cave. The moment I crossed the threshold, sound vanished. The air turned cold, damp, heavy with breath I couldn't place. Torches lit themselves along the path. Their flames burned green. My own poison's color. Of course. The first chamber was empty. Just a wide, circular room of stone and silence. But then a ripple passed across the far wall, and I stepped out of it. Another me. Same hair. Same face. Same clothes. But his eyes, they glowed faintly green. "I'm what they fear," he said calmly. "No," I whispered. "You're not me." "I am," he said. "I'm what happens if you let the poison guide you instead of the other way around." His hand sparked. Poison pooled at his feet like oil. "I'm the part of you that gets tired of patience." He struck first. Quick, precise. I dodged, barely, and felt a flicker of poison brush my sleeve. Warning, stack initiated. "He can poison me?" My skill didn't hesitate. It flared in return, spreading counterpoison through my bloodstream to block his buildup. "The poison is fighting itself." He smirked. "You see? Even your skill knows which of us is stronger." The fight wasn't physical. It wasn't about speed or damage. It was about who could hold the stack longer. I touched him once. He touched me once. 2 timers ticking. 10%. 15%. I staggered. He laughed. "You heal? but I corrode. My knees buckled. But I remembered Tessa's words. You limit yourself. Why not go to 100? Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't trust what I'd find at the end. But now, maybe I needed to. I closed my eyes. Stopped dodging. And focused. Let the stacks build. 30%. 40%. The pain vanished. Replaced by a calm, endless hum. The poison didn't feel like a burden anymore. It felt like a bridge. And I crossed it. My hands lit green and gold. The miracle blinked. What are you doing? Listening. The poison pulsed outward. Not to kill. To reclaim. To pull him back into me. He fought, screamed, his body turning to mist, threads unraveling. You'll lose yourself, he hissed. I stepped forward. No. I'll become someone new. The mirror shattered. Light poured in. And when I opened my eyes, I was standing alone in the cave. Hand steady. Heart calm. Poison, silent but present. I walked out without a scratch. Sarah watched me step into the light. Her expression unreadable. You passed. I know. She handed me a slip of parchment. Admitted, University Entrance Exam qualified candidate number 30. I didn't need to read it twice. I just nodded. And walked away. That night I wrote only one line in my journal. Entry 7. The poison isn't mine. It never was. But I am now part of it. And together we've stopped fearing what we might become. The capital city of Nostera didn't feel like part of the blue planet. It felt like something built above it. Towers of white crystal stretched into the clouds. Bridges floated between rooftops. Magic lanterns hovered in air too thin to hold them. And below, beneath the glitter, the streets murmured with too many voices. Everyone here seemed to have somewhere important to go, except me. I stood near the main gate with my travel pack on one shoulder, staring up at the massive stone arch engraved with 7 words. Welcome to the Pillars of Ascension. That was the name of the university. It sounded more like a warning than a title. The group of exam-qualified students from Velun was smaller than I expected. Just 6 of us. Mira stuck close, eyes darting between buildings. You know, she said, this place doesn't feel safe. It's the most secure city in the Northern Territories, I replied. That's not what I mean. I understood. There was something underneath the magic here. A hum in the air. A pulse in the ground. My poison was quiet, but alert. Like it remembered something I didn't. We were housed in Guild Dormitory West, a temporary structure built into the lower terrace of the university plateau. Simple beds. Shared hallways. Cold water only. Not that I cared. The real test would begin in 2 days. Until then we were free to explore. But not unsupervised. On the second night a letter arrived. Slid under my door. Unmarked. Kale Duran. There is someone in the research ring who has studied your skill before you ever awakened it. Come to Hall 7 at moonrise. Come alone. I read it 3 times. Mira saw my face as I folded the letter. Another poison stalker? Could be a trap. Then I'm coming. I looked at her. She raised an eyebrow. You're not actually dumb enough to go alone, right? I sighed. Fine. But you don't talk. Just stand nearby. The research ring was part of the university's core district. A sprawling sector of laboratories, spell banks, containment vaults, and experimental classrooms. Hall 7 was the oldest. Abandoned, supposedly. But when we arrived, its main gate creaked open like it had been waiting. Inside, nothing but dust, paper, and silence. Until a voice. Close the door, Kale. I turned. A man stepped from the shadows. Thin. Mid-40s maybe. White robes. His left hand was missing. His right held a cane with a green glowing crystal. His eyes were the same color as my poison. My name is Professor Elrin Voss, he said. I used to teach advanced curse theory here. Before my research was shut down. Let me guess, I said. Poison studies? Worse, he said. Poison that evolves. Poison that stacks. Poison that listens. My throat went dry. Mira stepped closer. You've seen it before? I whispered. No, he replied. I created it. The room fell silent. I stared at him, heart thudding in my ears. That's impossible. He smiled faintly. I didn't mean I created your skill. I meant the system your ability is built on. The stacking effect. The memory bleed. The field pulse. He tapped his cane once. They were theoretical applications of a lost curse model, based on ancient plague weavings from the southern ruin fields. The council shut it down before I could test it. Too dangerous, they said. I swallowed hard. And yet here you are, he said. Walking proof that someone did test it. Or that the planet did without us. I didn't know what to say. He walked slowly toward a metal box on a nearby table. Opened it. Inside, a black crystal vial swirling with green mist. Your poison isn't unique, Kale, he said. It's returning. He held out the vial. This is what it looked like the last time it lived. Take it, study it, or destroy it. But whatever you do, don't pretend you're in control anymore. We left without speaking. Not until we were outside, walking beneath the moonlit bridges, did Mira finally say, "So, that's not terrifying at all." I looked down at the vial. The poison inside pulsed once. Alive. That night I didn't sleep. Instead, I placed the vial beside my journal. And wrote, Entry 8, I'm not the origin. I'm the echo. The poison has existed before. Remembers what it was. And now, I do too. Tomorrow is the entrance exam. But tonight, I made peace with one truth. I'm not the first, but I might be the last. The entrance exam began at sunrise. 200 students, 10 regions, 30 seats, 3 stages. We stood in the stone-floored rotunda of the trial hall, beneath stained glass domes and glowing runes. Instructors in silver robes moved between us like ghosts, calling names, checking records, marking bands. Mira stood beside me, her fingers twitching. Whatever they throw at us, she muttered, we don't split up. Agreed. Then a chime rang across the ceiling. The exam had started. Stage 1, the veil grid. The gates opened. We were ushered through shimmering partitions of light, one at a time, separated from our teams. I was led into a small octagonal chamber, cold and dark, lit only by a pulsing glyph in the center of the floor. A voice echoed from the ceiling. Stage 1, Magic Source Suppression Trial. Your skill has been temporarily blocked. Survive for 8 minutes against a summoned threat. Begin. My heart dropped. Blocked? I looked down at my hands. Nothing. No hum. No glow. No poison. A rift opened across the far wall. From it emerged a creature of twisted bark and steel, its eyes burning like furnace coals. A low-tier construct, something I could normally poison and outlast. But not today. Not now. I ran. Dodged the first slam of its arm. It chased me around the narrow arena, slow but relentless. Every instinct screamed to reach for my power, to tap the rhythm that had become second nature. But there was nothing there. No stack. No healing. No voice. I remembered Alden's words. You're not your skill. You're what survives without it. So I stopped running. And started thinking. The glyph at the center. That's where the suppression came from. I ran toward it. The construct followed. I jumped over the rune, just as the construct's foot landed on it. The rune shimmered. The rune flickered. And in the flicker I felt it. A flicker of green. Poison, 1%. I dove backward, touched my wrist, focused everything. The poison surged back into my blood, slow, shaky, unstable. But present. The construct turned. I touched its arm. 2%. 3%. It stumbled. The suppression field flickered again. It had been calibrated to suppress me, but not it. And now that it was inside the field, it was working against itself. I circled it, waiting for openings. 5%. 7%. The construct cracked. Shuddered. Collapsed. The lights dimmed. The voice returned. Stage 1 cleared. When I stepped out, the test marshals barely looked at me. But one instructor, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes too calm, met my gaze and nodded once. He knew. Someone had set that trial up to fail me. And I passed anyway. Outside the trial chamber, Mira caught up to me. They isolated you too? Blocked my poison. Her jaw tightened. Someone scared of what you can do. Then they should be. That night I opened my journal. Entry 9, they tried to cut off my voice. But I remembered how to speak. The poison is part of me, but I am not helpless without it. And next time, I won't just survive. I'll teach them what fear really looks like. Stage 3 wasn't announced. It wasn't explained. We were told one thing. A gate will open. A dungeon will begin. The first 30 students to return alive will qualify. No ranks. No scores. Just survival. We stood at the edge of a circular portal, glowing like a sunken moon. Around us, nearly 80 students remained, those who passed the first 2 trials. I glanced at Mira. She was calm. Focused. Firelight danced under her skin. We nodded once. No promises. Just trust. The gate opened. And the ground dropped out from under us. We landed in a twisted valley of thorns and ash. The sky was a ceiling of roots. The earth groaned like it remembered pain. Dungeon type: wild infiltration, tier B. Threats: blight beasts, echo serpents, organic corruption. Extraction: manual return via core stone. Translation: fight your way in, get the key, fight your way out. I felt the poison stir the moment my boots hit the ground. I wanted this. Not in hunger. In purpose. We moved fast. No time to hide. Groups split in every direction. Some went alone. Others formed temporary teams. Mira and I stayed together. We ran through tunnels of bone root and bleeding moss. Fought off twitching barkellings that snapped like traps. I poisoned their cores. Mira burned the husks. For the first time, we didn't just survive a dungeon. We flowed through it. Until we found the core. A stone floating above a root altar. Shimmering red. Guarded by something massive. An echo serpent, black and silver, its skin humming with sound. It was blind, but it heard everything. We stilled. If it heard us breathe, it would strike. Mira whispered, "I'll distract it. You go for the stone." No. I stepped forward. And placed my hand on the ground. Poison, field spread. It flowed across the roots, up the walls. Silent. Not a strike. A suggestion. A hum that matched the serpent's own. His body twitched, then slowed. It curled in on itself, lulled by the rhythm. Not asleep. Not dead. Just still. I moved. Snatched the stone. The serpent's eye slid it open. Too late. We ran. On the way out, we saw others fighting. Falling. One team cornered by corruption vines. Another student bleeding out against the wall. I stopped. Mira did too. They didn't make it to the stone, she said. But they can still get out. We moved again. Helped two up. Pulled another out of a root trap. Gave one a spare charm. Didn't say a word. Just help. Because we could. We reached the gate with seconds to spare. 31 students were ahead of us. But one was too weak to walk through. I pressed my palm to her shoulder. Gave her a pulse of healing. She crossed the line. I was number 30. When it was over, the officials took names. Announced the list. I stood still, heart pounding. Then heard it. Rank 30, Kale Duran. I'd made it. Mira too. We didn't smile. We didn't cheer. We just breathed. And nodded. That night, I wrote in my journal. Entry 10, they made survival the only rule. But we didn't just survive. We carried others. We poisoned the path that tried to stop us. And left it better behind us. If this is what the university calls the beginning, then I'm ready to show them what comes next. The gates of the Adventure University open like a living thing. Not with ceremony or fanfare, just a slow, silent blooming of stone and light. A curved arch lined with thorns of crystal. A single phrase carved at its peak. Growth requires wounds. They called this place the Academy of Thorns. Now I knew why. We were led through a marble corridor into the orientation atrium, a hall so wide it echoed even the quietest breath. Dozens of new students filed in, all ranked top 30 from their home academies. Some had come from mountain cities, others from fortress towers. All of them had talent, and all of them watched each other like wolves in uniform. I stood near the back with Mira. Neither of us spoke. Not yet. Not until the dean arrived. A woman in green robes, hair pulled tight. A single vine-shaped brooch at her throat. She stepped to the center, hands folded. "Welcome," she said. "You are the best your cities have offered." No applause. No warmth. "Here," she continued, "your past victories mean nothing. Your survival here will depend on how well you adapt, not how brightly you once shined." Her eyes scanned the room. I could feel her pause when she looked at me. She knew. They all did. After orientation, we were assigned divisions. Not classes. Not years. Factions. I was placed in Division 9, also called the Hollow Ring. I'd heard the rumors. Only the strange end up in Hollow. Cursed kids. Quiet ones. Skills that don't make sense. Perfect. The Hollow Ring dormitory was nestled at the edge of the living campus, near the root lake. It didn't look like a building. It looked like a grown shell, wide, cracked, made of softwood and moss. Inside, 15 beds, 5 common spaces, 0 structure. We weren't even given schedules. Just a note. You will be tested when the soil calls you. Wait. Mira was placed in Division 4, Crimson Ash. A combat-heavy group. We wouldn't train together anymore. She wasn't happy about it. "Who even runs the Hollow Ring?" she asked that night, visiting my dorm. "I don't know. They do it on purpose." Split the strongest from their anchors. Force them to grow alone. I didn't disagree. We stood at the hollow entrance for a long while. She finally said, "You still listening to it? The poison?" "Yeah. Every day." She nodded. "Keep doing that." The next morning the test arrived. No announcement. Just a whisper through the wall vines. A single word. Garden. I followed the trail through the underwood path behind the dorm. No one else around. Until I stepped into a clearing. There waiting for me was a ring of standing stones. Inside the circle stood a figure. Hooded. Hands gloved. When they spoke, their voice was sharp, melodic. "You walk with poison. But you have not yet planted it. Who are you?" "Your soil." The figure extended a hand. "Show me the shape of your rot." I raised my palm. The poison flowed. Green shimmered over my fingers. They stepped closer. Pressed their hand to mine. And I felt it. The poison split. Half of it stayed in me. Half of it flowed into the ground. The soil breathed. Vines rose. Spines bloomed. Not thorns. "Thanks." The figure pulled back. "You are not the first," they said. "But you may be the last." Then they vanished. I stood in the stone ring alone. Hands shaking. The poison in me now felt bigger. Like it had roots. That night I wrote in my journal. Entry 11. The university doesn't teach. It tests. My poison is no longer just a weapon. It's becoming a system. A cycle. A garden. And now something is growing in me that I didn't plant, but will need to tend. Carefully. The hollow ring didn't train. It drifted. We weren't given a schedule. We weren't given teachers. Just whispers from the walls, requests written in leaves, and doors that opened when they were ready. I learned quickly, the hollow ring wasn't about control. It was about chaos with a pulse. And now I had to lead part of it. Team 5, the message Vine read. Assemble at the Bone Garden before dusk. Objective, reclaim the lost bloom. No instructor oversight. Success or failure will be recorded. I didn't even know I was in a team until that note arrived. But by late afternoon, I found the others waiting at the garden's edge. 4 students. All hollow. All strange. Team 5. Kale Duran, poison stacker. Quiet. Untrusted. Aaron Yell, white-haired swordsman with a blade he never draws. Said to control air, or something near air. Lita Marn, alchemist with half of her speech missing. Communicates in symbols drawn mid-air with silver ink. Drim, a walking shell of armor with a red moss cloak. Doesn't speak. Doesn't eat. Nobody knows if he's even human. We stared at each other. No one spoke. Eventually I broke the silence. So, the bloom? Aaron shrugged. Somewhere in the Bone Garden. Lita drew a half circle in the air. The rune flashed once. I wasn't sure what it meant. Drim tilted his head slowly. Helpful. The Bone Garden was a real place. A field of pale white plants and twisted stone columns. Rumor said the soil beneath it was made from the remains of failed experiments. And something about it felt wrong. The moment we stepped in, my poison stirred. Resisted. Almost like the ground itself had anti-memory. No root. No echo. No stack. It was the first place since my awakening where the poison felt unwelcome. We found the bloom near the center. A black flower made of glinting glass petals, growing from a split rib bone. It pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. That's when the roots moved. A mass of tendrils rose from the soil, shrieking in dry bursts. They weren't monsters. They were memories that rejected memory, things pulled from experiments that didn't want to exist anymore. They lunged. Lita tossed a vial, it sizzled midair, splashing dust. Useless. Aaron drew his blade 1 inch, air around us flexed, but then he let go. No wind here, he muttered. It's dead. Drim stepped forward, shield up. I touched the ground. Forced my poison into the soil. It hissed. Rejected. But I didn't pull back. Instead I whispered, if you won't let me grow, then let me rot with you. And the poison changed. Not into healing. Not into damage. Into understanding. A new type of stack. Decay. An infection that fed not on life but denial. The roots cracked. Split. Withered into gray dust. The garden trembled, and the flower bloomed black. Drim stepped forward and picked it up. Aaron blinked. That's it. Lita nodded, tracing a spiral. We left without speaking. Later that night, a message vine whispered the results. Team 5, success. Decay stack variant confirmed. Entry logged. Poison system adapting. I sat beneath the hollow ring's ceiling of roots and opened my journal. Entry 12, The poison doesn't need approval. It just needs to be told the truth. Even places that reject memory have cracks. And if memory can't bloom, then decay will feed it from underneath. This power isn't always beautiful, but it's patient. And now it's learning to listen even when the world tries to forget. The invitation came on paper I couldn't touch. I mean that literally. It was laced with venom ink, folded into itself like a sealed fong. The moment I opened it, a message burned into the air. To Kale Duran. You are formally invited to the Symposium of Venoms, held under University Rule 17. Attendance is not mandatory, but absence will be recorded. Topic: Evolving Contagions and Their Ethical Containment. Location: Sublecture Hall 6F. Host: Professor Elrin Voss. I stared at it, then burned it. The ink hissed like it was alive. Mira wasn't allowed to come. No guests, she said, reading the note over my shoulder before it went up in smoke. Yeah. You know it's a setup, right? Of course it is. She stared at me. You going anyway? I nodded. Sublecture Hall 6F was deep beneath the university's southern wing. Not listed on any maps. Not registered in any training rotations. It felt less like a classroom, and more like a chamber. I stepped inside. Rows of darkwood seats arched around a glass-floored center. At the far end, 7 instructors sat behind a stone table. Among them, Elrin Voss, the one-handed poison theorist with the vial I still hadn't opened. He nodded faintly as I entered. No one else was seated. Because no one else was invited. This was never a lecture. This was a hearing. One of the other professors, a woman with iron-gray hair and gold-rimmed eyes, leaned forward. Kale Duran, she said, not smiling, you are currently the sole student recorded to carry a live-adapting stacking effect, capable of damage, healing, decay, and now contagion. Is that correct? Yes. Have you studied its origin? No. I've lived it. She ignored that. Do you understand that abilities like yours were once classified as unstable soulcraft anomalies? I hesitated. Professor Voss told me it was a failed curse system. Not failed, she corrected. Buried. For good reason. They didn't ask me questions after that. They asked my skill. They scanned my hands with ether light. Recorded pulse rates. Watched my body as they activated field pressure around me. I didn't resist. Until they brought out the cutting circle. A ring of crystal blades meant for dissection without contact. Professor Voss stepped forward. His voice was softer than the others. We need to see how the stack responds when split. I clenched my fist. And if it doesn't respond? Then it's harmless, he said. And you'll be cleared. They placed my hand in the ring. I didn't move. The first cut came shallow. A line across my palm. My poison responded, but not with attack. With a hum. A pull. A thread of light that slipped into the circle and began rewriting the rune array beneath it. The machine shuddered. The blades folded inward. And the dissection ring turned black. Voss stepped back. It's protecting you. The woman at the table whispered, no. It's learning. The hearing ended early. They let me walk out on my own. But not before sliding a sealed envelope into my hand. Voss looked at me as I left. This wasn't a trap, Kale. It was a warning. For them. Not you. Later in my dorm I opened the envelope. Inside was a message. Handwritten. Only 5 words. You are not alone anymore. And beneath it, a map. Not of the university. But of somewhere else. A region marked deep beneath the surface. Labeled in ancient glyphs. The archive route. I opened my journal. Entry 13, they tried to dissect it. Instead, the poison taught them a lesson. It doesn't just defend. It rewrites the rules around it. Whatever this archive route is, the poison already knows. And now it wants me to go there. I left after midnight. No one saw me go. I told Mira I was going to study in one of the back gardens. That wasn't a lie. I just didn't tell her which one. The archive route wasn't part of any university schematic. It existed beneath the mapped levels. Beneath the crypt classrooms. Beneath the poison vault. Past a sealed stair that hadn't been touched in decades. The map from the envelope showed the way, but the poison in me confirmed each step. It pulsed when I was close. Like it had been here before. Like it was coming home. I reached the door just before dawn. A massive slab of dark stone, covered in vines that pulsed like veins. No lock. No handle. Just an inscription across the top, barely readable under the moss. Where poison first remembered itself. I reached out. The vines slid back. The door opened. Inside was quiet. A curved chamber half collapsed. shelves carved from root stone, glass tubes along the walls most shattered. The floor was covered in a thin layer of dust and dead spores. But the center was clear. A pedestal. And on it, a single object. A black-stemmed flower made of crystal. The same flower I'd helped reclaim in the bone garden. But this one was alive. Its petals opened as I stepped closer. And I heard it. A voice not spoken. Just remembered. You have brought it back. I froze. Who are you? No reply. Just a slow hum through the stone beneath me. Then light poured from the walls. And visions began. I saw hands. Old hands. Carving runes into bark. Filling vials with green flame. Feeding poison into stone. Testing it. Naming it. Then forgetting it. On purpose. They sealed us beneath the garden. Too afraid to prune us properly. I staggered back. The poison in my body shimmered outward, forming green threads through the air. The flower pulsed again. You are not the first carrier. But you may be the first to ask what we want. What do you want? Not death. Not pain. We want to be remembered. Fully. Not feared. Not erased. I dropped to one knee, heart pounding. What am I supposed to do? Grow. But do not forget the root. The light faded. The flower closed. And at its base something clicked open. A drawer. Inside, a book. Wrapped in mossed cloth. Real. Not memory. I opened it slowly. Inside were diagrams. Stack structures. Rot cycles. Healing conversions. And one final phrase written at the end. The poison does not bloom alone. I left the archive before sunrise. No alarms triggered. No watchers stirred. But as I crossed the last hallway back toward the surface, I felt someone following me. I turned. No one there. Just the faint sound of breathing. Slow. What? Waiting. I wrote in my journal that morning. Entry 14. The poison remembers everything, except who wrote the first story. I found part of it tonight. And now I carry it. Not to destroy. Not to fight. But to remember it right. Even if the university won't. And somewhere, something else remembers me now too. And it's not done watching. By sunrise, everything had changed. Not because I made an announcement. Not because I told anyone what I found beneath the university. But because the poison didn't stay silent. It left traces in the walls. Faint vines along the stone. Flickers of memory where I stepped. And someone followed them. The first one approached me in the east corridor near the study garden. She was younger than me, barely into her first university cycle. A hollow ring student I didn't recognize. She bowed slightly. Are you the root bearer? I blinked. What? She raised her hand. On her wrist was a green thread. A mark. Something that looked eerily like a stacked pattern, but etched into skin like a tattoo. I saw the vines, she said. They whispered. They told me you found the core. I didn't tell anyone that. I know. The poison told us. More came in the following days. One by one. Students from Hollow. A few from Crimson Ash. Even one from the Clockwell division, where memory users trained. They came with questions. And with belief. Can you teach me to hear it? Will your poison grow in us too? What did the flower show you? I didn't know how to answer. Because I hadn't planned to be a symbol. I was just trying to understand what lived inside me. But they already saw something else. A few started calling themselves the Tenders. A joke at first, then serious. They wore black thread bands around their left hands. They followed the paths my poison left behind. They claimed the vines in the walls hummed differently now. I didn't deny it, because part of me heard it too. Mira found me late that week near the root lake. She sat beside me on the dock, looking out over the glowing moss water. So, you're a cult leader now. I'm not. They're calling you the root bearer. I didn't ask them to. She was quiet for a moment. Then said, are they wrong? I didn't answer right away. Eventually I said, I'm just the one who listened first. She smirked. Well, that's how most cults start. Professor Alden summoned me the next day. He stood near his window with a report in hand. Do you know what this says? No. It says 5 Hollow students have dropped their coursework to begin root studies under you. I haven't accepted them. They don't care. He set the paper down. You started something, Kale. Whether you meant to or not. I stayed silent. Alden looked at me, long and steady. There's a difference between power and myth. You're stepping into the second. That night, I sat in my dorm and stared at the old book from the archive route. The final page glowed faintly now. New ink. A sentence that hadn't been there before. The bloom is not born in solitude. It waits for the ones who carry it willingly. I opened my journal. Entry 15, I never asked to be followed. But maybe this poison was never meant to stay inside one person. Maybe it was always a root system, spreading beneath the surface, waiting for someone to say yes. I'm not sure what I'm becoming. But whatever it isn't just mine anymore. I hadn't seen Riven in 3 days. He wasn't my friend. Not exactly. Just one of the quieter Hollow Ring students. A second year. Kept to himself. Asked smart questions during training, stayed after to listen to the root lines in the walls. But he was always there. Until now. The first sign something was wrong came with the vines. Then, sure. Sprouting along the hallway between the hollow dormitory and the root stair. Not wild vines, poison ones. My kind. Except I hadn't planted them. Professor Alden found me that morning. He didn't knock. Just stood at the door, arms folded, expression tight. You need to see this, he said. We followed the trail through the lower corridor. Down 2 levels. Past the sealed gate marked restricted. Inside, a breach. The root wall had split open. Behind it, a tunnel. Natural but not. Moss-covered stone. Vines twisted like nerves. The air tasted like copper and salt. It led into the underpath, the hidden system of tunnels beneath the university no student was supposed to know about. Guild scouts won't enter, Alden said. They don't trust it. You think Riven went down there? He didn't just go, he said quietly. He took something. He showed me the vial. My poison. Or a version of it. Diluted. Carried. Found missing from the Hollow Lab 3 days ago. Why would he take that? I asked. Alden looked at me. You gave people permission to grow. I didn't argue. Because I had. I followed the path alone. Alden didn't stop me. He knew the poison would reject anyone else. Down past the carved roots. Past the shrines long covered in dust. Into a tunnel where the walls trembled faintly, alive with memory. The poison knew I was coming. And the further I walked, the more it guided me. Until I found him. Riven knelt in the center of an open chamber, surrounded by black flowers made of bark and breath. His body was still. But his veins glowed green. Not bright. Not burning. Just softly. Like moss on a stone that had forgotten its name. Riven, I whispered. He looked up slowly. His eyes shimmered. Did it work? He asked. What did you do? I wanted to hear it like you do. So I let it in. His voice cracked. It didn't hurt. Not at first. I knelt beside him. The vines had grown around his legs. Not strangling. Supporting. I don't know how to get back, he said. I reached out. Placed a hand on his shoulder. The poison in me flowed into him, gently. Not to purge. Not to erase. To remind. And slowly the glow in his veins began to dim. His breath steadied. The flowers faded. But not completely. I carried him back. The vines didn't fight. They moved aside. Let us pass. Alden stood at the gate as I emerged. He's alive, I said. Alden didn't speak. He just opened the door and stepped aside. Later, as I sat by the hollow dorm window, the other tenders approached. No speeches. No cheers. Just one quiet question. Did the poison accept him? I thought for a long time. Then answered. It didn't reject him. That's enough. I wrote in my journal that night. Entry 16. We think poison spreads outward. But it doesn't. It spreads downward. Into the soil. Into the self. Riven didn't break because he was weak. He broke because he thought it would save him. And the poison listened, too much. If this is what a bloom looks like when it consumes, then I need to learn how to prune. The summons came as a spoken message. A tendril of vines slipped from the hollow dorm ceiling and whispered the words directly into my ear. Kale Duran. Guildmaster's Hall. Noon. No note. No reason. No refusal. Just go. I'd never met the university guildmaster. No one had, not really. They said he didn't attend lectures, didn't appear at assemblies, didn't even walk the surface halls. Only students who crossed a certain line were asked to see him. Not for discipline. Not for guidance. Just to be measured. The hall wasn't grand. It was quiet. Shaded stone and thick moss floors, lit by slow-burning amber lanterns. The only decoration was a glass carving on the far wall. We grow what we cannot predict. I wasn't sure if it was encouragement or warning. He stood near a low table, pouring tea with steady hands. Gray robe. No rings. No title badge. He looked like a gardener. Not a leader. When he turned, his eyes weren't sharp. They were tired. Not from age. From carrying things too long. Kale, he said. Thank you for coming. Was I supposed to say no? He almost smiled. Few do. Fewer should. He gestured to the other chair. I sat. Then he placed a thin scroll between us, sealed in black wax. This is your classification report, he said. I didn't know I had one. You didn't? Until last week. I didn't open it. Not yet. He poured tea for me without asking. I've watched you since your arrival, he said. Not with suspicion. With curiosity. You weren't loud. You didn't chase ranks. You didn't ask to lead. I waited. But the poison grew anyway. Around you. Under you. Into others. I said nothing. He looked directly at me. There is a threshold in the guild system, something known as contagion class. It isn't about illness. It's about influence without boundary. And you think I'm that? No, he said quietly. The council does. He tapped the scroll once. They want to label you, monitor you, fence you in. For your safety or theirs. I opened the scroll. Inside, my file. Skill, unknown evolutionary poison type. Category, stack/field/regenerative/cognitive memory linked. Current classification, pending, contagion risk. Below that, a note. Should tenders multiply beyond hollow division control, containment measures may be advised. My mouth was dry. You're going to lock me up? No, he said. Someone else will? Not yet. He met my eyes again. Tell me, Kale. Can you stop it? I don't know. He nodded slowly. That's the first honest answer I've heard in this hall. When I stood to leave, he didn't follow. He said only one more thing. If your poison is a forest, then know this. Roots grow deep, but they also crack stone. Back in my dorm, I called the tenders. 10 came. Riven was among them, still pale but awake. I'm not your leader, I told them. I don't want you worshipping me. One girl with a mark on her hand whispered, We're not following you. We're following the seed you carry. Then stop feeding it blindly. That night, I sat by the root lake and wrote in my journal. Entry 17, they want to contain me. Maybe they're right. Not because the poison is evil, but because it doesn't stop growing. I don't think in limits anymore. And neither does it. If this is a forest, then I have to become the one who decides what grows. And what gets cut down. It started with a pulse in my chest. Not pain. Not fear. Just wrong. Like something I'd planted had been yanked up, roots first. The poison flared. Not violently. Just wary. I followed it down. The old Greenwell vaults under the west wing had long been sealed, abandoned after a failed botanical binding class caved in a floor. No one used them now. Except someone had. The poison led me to the shattered entrance. Cracks in the wall. Dust in the air. And the sound of chanting. Soft. Precise. Structured. I stepped inside. And I saw them. 4 students. 3 I didn't recognize. The 4th, Lina Marveil. One of mine. A hollow ring alchemist. Usually silent. Usually careful. Now she stood in the center of a crude binding circle, green ink symbols scrawled across the stone. In her hands, a small black seed pulsing. then set it down and said, "They're afraid of you." "I know. This is a leash." "I know that too." He leaned back, hands folded. "But it's a leash with keys to every locked door in the university. Join this council and you'll be able to walk through walls no one else can. Influence policy. Protect your tenders. Study the poison with full clearance. And in exchange? You stop growing where they can't see." Later I found Mira by the root lake. She was training with a new blade, a short-handled scythe shaped like a crescent flame. "Let me guess," she said without turning. "The council wants your thorns trimmed. They want a vow. To stop spreading? Unless they say otherwise." She shook her head. "That's not a compromise. That's farming. They want to crop you." I sat beside her in the moss. "I don't know what the right call is." She lowered the blade and looked at me. "You already made it. The moment you started healing others. Letting them carry the poison. You chose freedom. Now you just have to decide if you're still brave enough to hold to it." The council met under the grand green light dome. 7 chairs. 6 filled. The 7th was mine. I didn't sit in it. I stood and said, "I'm not here to be caged politely. You want my insight, you get it? But I won't take a vow to stop growing something I don't fully control, and neither should you." Silence. One of the professors leaned forward. "Then you will be recorded as unbound. And the university will not protect you if the poison turns volatile." I nodded once. I didn't ask for protection. After the session, Elrin Voss found me in the outer hall. "You refused. You expected me not to?" "I hoped," he said. "But I also hoped you would ask for the original root sample." I turned sharply. "What?" He smiled faintly. "The one they sealed away long before your time. The first poison bloom." "Where is it?" His smile didn't waver. "Where no one looks anymore, under the medical wing." That night I didn't sleep. I just stared at the vines on the hollow dorm wall. They hadn't grown since I came back. They were waiting for what came next. I wrote in my journal. Entry 19, they want a version of me that fits their system. Predictable. Contained. Measured. But poison doesn't grow by permission. It grows by need. And mine hasn't stopped breathing. The first bloom is still alive. I need to meet it. Not to stop it. To understand what I might become. The medical wing was quiet at midnight. Not asleep, just pretending. The halls hummed with enchantments meant to soothe pain, not protect secrets. But I wasn't looking for a cure. I was following a memory. One the poison had shown me weeks ago, curled at the edge of the archive route. A door that never opened. Until now. I passed through the 3rd floor. Past treatment rooms. Past herb labs. Past the hospice wall lined with spell-fed ivy. Then I found it. A plain panel marked only by a glyph that blinked once as I stepped near. The vines on my arm lit in reply. And the wall folded open. Inside, a stairwell. Unsealed. Alive. It led down. Not to storage. To something buried. The stone turned to root. The root turned to black glass. Then the stair ended in a single chamber, round and silent. And at its center, a containment cradle. Inside it, floating in green crystal, was a person. She looked young. Maybe my age. Maybe younger. Short black hair. Faint markings along her arms like tree rings burned into the skin. Her eyes were shut. Her chest barely moved. But her presence, I felt it before I saw her. The poison in me bowed to it. Not with fear. With recognition. This wasn't the first carrier. This was the seed. A console blinked at the edge of the cradle. Words scrawled themselves onto the glass as I stepped near. Subject, Lyra Ven. Status, dormant. Origin, root bond trial 001. Classification, terminated project, memory carrier type. Time asleep, 47 years. Observation status, passive. Do not engage unless resonance accepted. The moment I reached out, the crystal pulsed. Green, gold, black. The same colors I'd seen in every bloom, every fight, every dream. Her eyes opened, not wide, just enough. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her in my chest. "You came from the surface." "Yes. The poison reached you. I carry it now. Then it's working." She floated up, then stepped softly out of the cradle. Her feet never touched the ground. Not quite. She was more echo than person now. But still, human. Still host. "I need to know," I said, "what this power really is." She tilted her head. "It's a memory," she said. "Not of death. Of everything that refused to be forgotten." Her voice was calm. Dreamlike. They tried to bury us here. Not to kill the poison, but to kill its story. And you brought it back. The room shivered. I felt it again. Roots moving. Above us. Across the academy. The poison was waking. And it wasn't just mine anymore. Lyra stepped closer. Will you carry it further? She asked. It's not safe. No, she said. But it's true. She touched my hand. The vines on my arm glowed. And a new thread braided itself through my skin. Not green. Not gold. Silver. A signal. A memory I hadn't earned yet. She sat again in the cradle. Closed her eyes. And whispered. We're never just one bloom. We're the forest that remembers it. The crystal sealed around her once more. And the door opened behind me. I walked back to the surface before dawn. And all around me, the walls of the university were sprouting faint green threads. Not dangerous. Just visible. A message. To anyone who had eyes. That morning I wrote in my journal. Entry 20, I met the first. She wasn't a monster. She was a vessel. Not made to conquer but to carry. The poison didn't choose her to fight. It chose her to remember. And now, I'm not alone in that. I don't know what happens next. But I do know this. Whatever comes, it won't bloom quietly.